Hello, my name is Dennis O'Brien. I'm the president of the Space Treaty Institute, a scientific and educational nonprofit located in Northern California. Our mission is to give people hope and inspiration by helping the nations of the Earth to build a common future. Today I'm going to talk about exclusion zones for space resource activity, how they violate the ban on appropriation in the Outer Space Treaty, and how sharing access to space resources provides a way forward. But before we get to space law, we first need a lesson in economics. This is Eleanor Ostrom. In 2009, she won the Nobel Prize in Economics for her work in categorizing goods and resources. She began her career at Indiana University and ended it at Arizona State University, where she founded the Center for the Study of Institutional Diversity. Her Nobel lecture was titled Beyond Markets and States: Polycentric Governance of Complex Economic Systems. Before her work, economists had divided goods and resources into two categories: private goods and public goods. Private goods are excludable and subtractable, or rivalrous. It is easy to exclude other potential beneficiaries, and consumption by one means less to consume by others. Examples include food, clothing, and automobiles. In the space law context, private goods also include exclusive claims to resources. Public goods are the opposite. It is difficult to exclude others from their use, and use by one does little or nothing to reduce use by others. In between are toll goods, which are excludable but not subtractable, and common pool resources, which are subtractable but not excludable. Here's how Eleanor Ostrom explained it during her Nobel Prize lecture. Pure private goods are both excludable and rivalrous, or subtractable. Public goods are both non-excludable and non-rivalrous. This basic division was consistent with the dichotomy of the institutional world into private property exchanges in a market setting and a government-owned property organized by a public hierarchy. This is often how the debate is framed in space law, a choice between control by the state or by market forces. But Ostrom added a very important fourth type of goods, common pool resources, that shares the attribute of subtractability with private goods and difficulty of exclusion with public goods. It is difficult to govern such resources purely with market forces or state control. Thus the title of her paper, Beyond Markets and States: Polycentric Governance of Complex Economic Systems. Why is this analysis important to us? It is because exclusion equals appropriation, and appropriation is prohibited by the Outer Space Treaty, often called the Constitution of Space Law. Article 2 of the OST states that outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, is not subject to national appropriation by claim of sovereignty, by means of use or occupation, or by any other means. Exclusion is a form of appropriation. It is meant to make a resource private property by making it impossible for anyone else to use it. Exclusion is thus banned by the Outer Space Treaty, making outer space a de jure common pool resource. With this analysis in mind, we must now ask ourselves, do the Artemis Accords violate the Outer Space Treaty's ban on appropriation? The answer is yes. Although the Accords give their zones the innocuous name of safety zones, they still establish exclusive zones of space resource activity. They do this in three ways. 1. They establish a unilaterally declared size for the zones that depends on the nature of the activity, but without any other limitations. An entire eternally dark crater could be designated a zone of activity for removing all of the water ice there. 2. They are unlimited in duration, ending only when the resource activity is completed. This would exclude other parties from accessing the resource until it was totally depleted. 3. Any effort by another party to access resources in the zone is deemed to be harmful interference and a violation of Article 9 of the Outer Space Treaty. Fortunately, there is a simple solution. All actors must agree to share access to resources. By definition, resources will include not just materials that can be gathered or extracted, but also the land itself that is used for any public or private activity, commercial or non-commercial. Sharing mitigates exclusion. It is no longer appropriation, no longer a violation of the Outer Space Treaty. All that is needed is for the Accords and any other proposed norms to add the following requirement. Access to resources shall be shared. Any outer space resource activity shall be conducted in such a manner to allow others to access the same resource safely. So if outer space, particularly the moon, is a common pool resource, what kind of governance does it need? Some fear a centralized government that will take away the sovereign freedoms of countries and their nationals. But this is not necessary. Only a limited central authority is needed, and instead of a new agency or government, it can be a set of agreed-to principles and processes. One example is the Treaty of Svalbard, an archipelago near the Arctic Circle. Although it is nominally under the jurisdiction of Norway, any country that signs the treaty can access any of the resources there, so long as they abide by certain principles, such as non-military activity and protecting the environment. What kind of principles and processes would be needed for sharing the resources of the moon? The Space Treaty Institute has drafted a model implementation agreement for the Moon Treaty. It includes 7 basic principles and processes. 1. Share access to resources, including materials and land and locations. 2. Share information, including discovery of resources. 3. Register activities. 4. Develop standards, recommended practices, and interoperability. 5. Protect natural environment, scientific and historical sites. 6. Dispute resolution, including consultation, arbitration, and mediation. 7. Honor the rights of individuals and settlements. The model agreement protects the rights of individuals under the Uniform Declaration of Human Rights and the rights of settlements to seek recognition as autonomous or independent states. The rights of individuals and new societies might seem like science fiction, but they are the real concerns of present-day people and must be addressed in any international agreement. Otherwise, it will not garner widespread support, and it will fail. Although there is debate as to the meaning of the Outer Space Treaty's prohibition against appropriation, its historical context is clear. The prohibition was adopted to prevent a repeat of the age of imperialism, when countries with advanced technologies battled for the world's resources, causing centuries of war, violence, and neglect. Unfortunately, we are about to repeat that pattern as nations begin to assert new claims over outer space resources. These are challenging times. Every day, people wake up to news of the increasingly disastrous effects of climate change, worsening economic inequality, racial gender injustice, and assaults on democracy. To that has now been added the threat of war in outer space. The people of Earth are beginning to despair, wondering if there's anything they can really believe in. They are losing hope, and the resulting cynicism is poisoning our politics, our relationships, even our thinking. The mission of space law must be nothing less than to restore that hope, to inspire humanity by giving the people of our planet a future they can believe in, to counter the despair of war and violence and neglect, to build that shining city on a hill that will light the way for all. At this moment in time, it is space law itself that needs capacity building. The current framework is inadequate, resulting in endless arguments over the meaning of outdated agreements. The time has come to craft a new agreement that will facilitate the peaceful and sustainable development of outer space, one that will give people hope and inspiration as the nations of the Earth begin to build a common future. In the third decade of the 21st century, it is the Moon Treaty, with an implementation agreement based on sharing and cooperation, that can provide the international framework of law that humanity needs to become a spacefaring species. For the full model agreement and related documents, please go to spacetreaty.org. Thank you very much for your time and attention.